Thanks for joining us today to discuss life and godliness with Rick and Angela Carter. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, email us at cartersforhope@gmail.com. That's Carters, the number 4, hope@gmail.com. Any questions you have, we'll discuss in future episodes. Right now, sit back and let's join in on the conversation. Good day. We hope you're well.
Yeah. Good day.
Good day to you, sir. We are in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We have never been here before.
Yep.
We had a couple days off, and we came over to check it out. And
Interesting place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's overall, by the time you add Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, I probably said that wrong. Sevierville. Yeah, but that's not how they say it. Anyway, but it's, I think, much bigger than Branson. But it doesn't have the number of shows that Branson has. Like there are shows, but I don't think
there's
it's
not that
like
many.
That's not the main thing.
And there's not like the theater shows as
there's
many.
A few.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
And then there's not the music shows like in Branson, which we didn't go to anyways.
Right, we don't go to any of them. But there's a lot of stuff here. And
you know what else? We have only seen one timeshare place. Branson, they're at every corner in every store.
I'm sure they're here
around every.
We've probably avoided them well,
maybe,
which is good, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it is a beautiful area, Smoky Mountains, and we have had a good time just kind of relaxing.
The weather's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been warm.
Yeah, and we've just been relaxing and enjoying just some downtime, which is unusual for us. We don't get a lot of downtime, so
Picked up a new hobby.
Well, we're not really yet. We're trying. We thought, let's try disc golf. And so we bought a couple discs to try. And
6.
I will say this.
Because it comes 3 in a set.
We got a set for each, a small set for each starter pack. And I will say this, much harder than I thought. I just never played.
Like, who thought it'd be hard to throw a Frisbee?
Right. I thought it would be like throwing a Frisbee, but it's not. Not, I guess, if you want it to go straight. So we practiced, and we need more practice. We need more practice. Anyway, but we're going
to do it.
Messing around. We thought it'd be nice. Usually the places are free, and it's a way to kind of walk and enjoy some outside time. But before we get too far in, let me say this early. We usually say this at the end, but if you would like, subscribe, and share the podcast, that would be fantastic. And it would help us with the algorithms and all that type of stuff. And if you have anything that you would like to recommend for us topic-wise, this topic today is a topic we have been recommended or asked to talk about. And so we don't always talk about every podcast is a topic we've been requested. Some of them are just ones that we think are interesting. And so, but we kind of try and mix it in a little bit here and there and keep it mixed up so everyone's guessing what we're going to do next. Anyway, so...
Yes, we'll go with that.
Yeah, exactly. We are going to talk today about, and you tell the topic.
Okay, let me get the word.
You had it right there.
Yes, I did. I clicked off of it. Okay, so the topic is dealing with children/siblings that leave the faith they grew up in.
Right. And so that actually happens a lot.
It does.
And I grew up in a pastor's home, and I would say, I don't know, it seems like a significant number of preachers' kids in particular do leave the faith disillusioned. I think that there's causes for that. I think there's reasons behind that. I do think Satan definitely attacks pastors' homes a lot. I think that if we're not careful, we can let bitterness creep into our hearts, and that affects our children. Even though we continue in ministry, it affects our children and defiles their thoughts concerning the Lord, churches, and so forth. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons maybe people would drop out of church. But the question is, leave the faith. And I would say not everyone that I know that is a preacher's kid that has dropped out of church has necessarily left the faith, because that can mean a lot of things. And what I mean is, obviously, if you're not in church, you're not practicing your faith. That's not quite the same as deciding you're an atheist or becoming something else completely, like from Baptist to Catholic or to Muslim or Mormon or something like that. I would say leaving the faith could mean many different things. For most, it seems like it just means they
going to
stop
church.
going to church, they get in sin.
But when I got into church when I was in high school, I got into church as a sophomore. There were 5 other young people in the church, all from different homes, 5 other homes, my age, a few years younger. But, all of them quit going to church.
For a while, one of them,
only one that I know of came back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
except for you.
Yeah, all of them
Yeah.
but me. Yeah. So it's not just preacher homes, ministry kids.
Right. No, it's not.
none
It's
of those
certainly
were.
not just pastors' homes. And sometimes
Yeah.
preachers might think that. I don't think most preachers think that, though, because
No, but that's just who you're
because they
familiar with.
see, as a pastor, it is common to see young people that grow up in church then, go off out of church. And I would say, I don't know what the numbers are, and it doesn't seem to matter if they are in a home that's a solid home
Or not. Yeah.
I mean, I know young people who were in homes where there was divorce and they stayed faithful and served the Lord. I know people who grew up in homes that were solid and I think are solid. I don't think there's like some glaring issue, and then they completely departed from the faith, not just quit going to church, but like became atheists or declared themselves as atheists and all kinds of things like that. And so I think I don't think there's just like one thing you could point at and go, this is why a child goes sideways or things like that.
But definitely, I think those that do go sideways, they usually will pin it back on one thing or
well,
another.
they may claim something, but I say in general, you can't say it's X, Y, or Z as a broad brush answer. Ultimately, it comes down to they've made a choice, right? They decided and they chose. And they may blame others and they may blame certain things, but the reality is they made a choice. So when we talk about a child or a sibling that is in that situation, the question then, okay, well, not because the question isn't how to win them back, because in reality, there's some things I think we could do, right? I think we could continue to be witnesses and so forth, but the question's more, how do I respond to them? I think that's the question. But let me just address that idea of being a witness. I think that there's a problem sometimes and there has been a problem maybe in churches where this idea of if someone departs from the faith, you like treat them badly. And the Bible actually says to let them be as a heathen man. But what are we supposed to do to the heathen? We're supposed to witness to them. We're supposed to win them. If I treated everyone that wasn't a believer as badly as I treat someone who I think has stepped away from the faith, I think that no one would become a believer, right? So I think that there has to be an aspect of this where I say, okay, I can't maybe have the fellowship I would like to have with this person in far as a close intimacy of the fellowship. I say close intimacy, that might sound wrong, but
yeah, that's weird.
Just my brother who is, and I don't have a brother like this, but if I had a brother or sister who had departed from the faith, I don't need to excommunicate them out of my life and just scorn them with my with my attitude. I need to try and be a witness to them as much as they will allow me to. Now, they may scorn me for holding on to the faith.
And that's possible.
But I'm willing to suffer that reproach for Christ and try and witness to them as well.
But that doesn't mean, when you say be a witness to them, that doesn't mean beat them over the head with the gospel every time you talk to them.
That's true. And that's one of the things I would say just concerning children that go sideways or depart from the faith is your relationship with them is not based exclusively upon the faith. So why would you make that the only thing that entails your relationship, right? My child was my child, whether we were in the faith or not in the faith, they're born to me, right? My sibling was my sibling no matter what. And so my relationship isn't based exclusively on the faith. So why would I then decide I'll have nothing to do with you if you don't hold the same faith I do? I think that there's an error there that is a common error, but I think it is an error nonetheless.
Do you think it's,
I think you're
um
tired for some reason.
I know I am. Do you think it is, like, because I've thought about this a lot, like, the First Peter 3 there with the lady who, it says, "Likewise, wives want to win their husband," but it says, without the word, observing the, their conversation, their chaste conversation,
Right.
which we all have always taught that that is more than just words, that's
Conversation is your
your
lifestyle.
whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that whole principle apply to this situation as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that's where, like, for instance, I think we've talked about this a little bit. We, for
Mm,
a period of time, one of our children did depart out into the world,
mm.
and it was not a lengthy period of time, but there was a period of time when they
It's
decided
too
we're not going
long.
to church. And thank God it wasn't a super lengthy period of
Yeah.
time, but it was
Well,
felt longer probably than it actually was. But
yeah.
they decided they weren't going to go to church and made a statement, hey, if you I understand if you won't talk to me or whatever, have anything to do with me, but this is what I feel like I need to do. And my response was, why would I not talk to you? You're my
You're
son, you're my child. I'm not, nothing has changed in that regard.
right.
I love you as much as I've ever loved you. And so we would communicate
Mhm.
with them and say, hey, I saw this, thought you'd think it was funny, or
Yeah, things
did you
they
notice
like or
this? How are you doing?
the line of
Just,
conversion.
yeah, there was a communication there and we didn't close it off. Now, it wasn't the same, obviously,
Mm,
because there was some things that we basically said, "Hey, we can't assist you to do these things or to, in this fashion like we would otherwise assist you when you're in this state because you need to deal with God about these things. And so we're still your mom and dad. We still love you. We are still praying for you and we want you to know that that doesn't change. That hasn't changed. But um our
but we
conversation
also didn't shy away from saying, "Hey,
when
I'm
it
praying for you
correct.
today."
Yeah, and there was a time where he said, "Well, can I come for Christmas?" And we said, "Yeah, but if you're gonna be in the home, you know the rules of the home. We
Mhm.
expect you to
You're welcome to
honor the
stay here,
rules.
but the
That's
but
part
if
of
you stay here,
honoring the
this is our
family,
rules.
honoring
Yeah.
mom and dad. And so, you're always welcome, but your sin is not." And
Mhm.
so there was that
And
that
and he
standard,
did come and
and
stay,
he
and he did.
and he observed that.
Yes,
And
yeah.
God used those things. I really do believe God
Mhm.
used the fact that we didn't cut him off. God used the fact that we let him come back to the house, but God also used the fact that we did not change.
Right.
And I think therein lies the biggest issue that happens. I see this too often
Yeah.
is one of these two extremes. One extreme is that I cut them off and I'll
And
have nothing to
never
do with
speak to
them
them
and
and
I refuse to
no
talk to
kind
them.
words and
Right. The other extreme is I give up every standard and faith that I have had
mhm.
because my child has departed from the faith and now I give it up. And I think that those extremes become a problem. I think both extremes are resolved in the story of the prodigal, right? Luke 16. The father stayed there. He did not move. He did not change. The son, when he came to himself, knew where he needed to go to get things right because the father was consistent.
Mm,
But when the father saw him, he ran to meet him and gave him a hug and kissed his neck. He didn't have an evil heart toward him. He was open to his son. He loved his son. His son said, I've done wrong. I'm more worthy to be called your son. Make me a servant." He's like, "That's ridiculous. You're my son, right?"
right.
Put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet and a robe on him and kill the fatted calf. And my son that was dead is alive. And there's that sense in that the father's heart toward him never changed. The father's heart wasn't hard toward him. And I think that when someone departs from the faith, they have this expectation that because their heart is hard,
That
everyone
yours
else's
has gotta
heart
be
will be
too. Yeah.
toward them. And I think that we have to not feed into that expectation. I
Mhm.
think that the problem is that when a child or departs or a sibling departs from the faith, we are hurt.
Right.
And
We
there's
feel almost betrayed.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because it's like we take it very personally that
Mhm.
they've departed. And sure, I
Yes.
mean, we've invested in them.
Mhm.
We've loved, we've tried to raise them and train them and all that. But at the same time, we do recognize the free will
Yeah.
and that everyone does have a free will. And that's one of those things that I talk about sometimes when we're doing conferences, marriage family conferences in particular. And sometimes people don't like what I say about it, but that's pretty common. And if you're listening after the last
Lately.
episode,
Yeah.
then you welcome back. And
What are we, 4 for 4?
mm, but the reality is that we use that verse, train up a child and the way he should go when he's old, he'll not depart from it. And we talk about that aspect of it, a promise, and these type of things, but it's a proverb.
Right.
And it says it clearly. It's a proverb. And it doesn't mean it's not true. It's obviously true. It's in the word of God, but it also is a proverb is just different than a promise. And I think part of the reality is that we've talked about this before. I just bit my tongue. And we've talked about this before about
We're a mess.
the the training process. And sometimes we have this wrong sense of what train up a child means. And I think that matters. But also, we have to allow then that they have a free will because it has to be falsifiable. Train up a child means take them to church and they'll never not go to church. Then that means that a child who is never taken to church will never go to church. If that's a guarantee, right? It's 100% promise. We don't believe that because we believe men have a free will to make a choice to receive or reject the truth. And because of that, we have to also allow in a sense, we have to allow the concept that a child will occasionally choose not to follow the Lord and choose not to walk
Mhm.
with God. And that's hard because we don't want that to be our child
Right.
because we know what the Bible says about those who don't walk with the Lord. Either those who don't believe in God and the eternal condemnation of that, or B, those who are believers but choose to not follow in obedience and the temporal chastisement of that.
Mm.
And so we know that both of those, either way that it is right there, it's going to be a hard thing. And you would almost say, I hope that they're saved. I want to believe they're saved because I'd rather them be chastened here than spend eternity in hell. They're my child. And yet at the same time, because it's so hard, it's like we take it personally and almost like you have offended me instead of you have offended God and you need to reconcile with God. It didn't change that you're my son or you're my daughter or you're my brother or sister. And I still want you to know that I love you in this relationship, this temporal relationship, family relationship hasn't changed. And they may change it, but on my part, I'm open to that continuing.
Right. Right.
So I think that there's that aspect that has to be kind of considered there of my heart being right toward them.
I agree.
So when we think about that though, then what do we think? Because it's one thing parent child, and I think we've talked about that more in other ways or other areas already in the past, but this question also included siblings, and sibling relationships are complicated
Challenging.
because I mean, if we're just being honest about this, everyone's siblings are dumb, aren't they? I mean, everyone think their siblings are dumb.
Especially if you're the firstborn.
I'm just kidding. I love my siblings, and
Yes, we do.
but you know, the reality is that sibling relationships are unique in that they can be close, and yet at the same time there can be a certain level of antagonism that's inherent in a sibling relationship. Not I don't know if antagonism is the right word, but where it's like
Mm.
I love you because you're my sibling, but you're not I don't really like being around you necessarily, I
Well, yeah,
mean, there's
because
a
of personalities, attributes, things,
right, and especially
especially if one
if there's
leaves.
one that has departed from the
Yeah.
faith, it makes it a little more complicated. I think it's
Mhm.
easier for a parent to express that love for a child even when they depart from the faith because they are
It's
your
their
child.
child.
But with a sibling, it is more complicated, and I think that is also illustrated in the parable of the prodigal
Mm.
because the brother that didn't leave ended up having a worse attitude in the end, right? And having complications. Father had to rebuke him because of his attitude toward his sibling. And I think that that's an interesting thing that God put it in there that way. Like, it's understandable for a parent to continue to love their child. Matter of fact, it seems somewhat strange that a parent would cut off a child, but it doesn't seem that strange that a sibling would cut off a sibling.
No.
So
Yep.
let's explore that a little bit in conversation here then. So what do you think the dynamic there where as a sibling, if I see my sibling doing wrong, why is it maybe harder for me to keep my heart right toward them than it would be?
I think because one, you're raised in the same home. You
Yeah,
hear the same teaching, you're taught the same things.
I've heard that a lot.
Yes. So you don't understand why this sibling is acting the way they are or believing what they believe because it
Mhm.
doesn't make sense to you.
Right. Because we both learned the same thing. We both
Right.
were in the same home. We
We had the same teaching, same upbringing, same.
correct.
Yeah.
But is that true though?
No, because everybody sees things through their perspective lens.
Right. And I think parents are different per child.
Well, and you can't deal with each child the same. You have to deal with them differently because each child's
Mhm.
created different. So while yes, they may grow up in the same home.
Well, okay, so let's say that then, though, if you try and deal with all your children exactly the same, you will have disparate outcomes regardless because of the fact that they are all
They're all
different.
different.
And so they're going to receive or perceive things in a different way, even when they are exactly the same.
Mm,
And that right there creates a conflict between siblings because each sibling is perceiving whatever's going on in the home and perceiving the way that the parents are responding or doing things in their own way. And it kind of goes back to the value priority
yes,
paradigm, doesn't it?
it does. It does go back to that somewhat. But then also, I think too, everybody thinks they're right in their own eyes. Isn't that what
Hmm.
the Bible says?
Hmm.
And so siblings are no different. We all think that we do things the right way, and we don't. Those don't. Our
Right.
siblings don't.
Why don't they do it the way I
Because
do
their
it?
priorities are different.
Right. And just to recap on what the value priority paradigm concept there, and I know I believe we've talked about that before here.
We have.
So the value priority paradigm, meaning that everyone has a set of values. They value things in unique ways. Maybe they value, let's talk about possessions over relationships, or
Mm,
they value hard work over possessions, and or they value, certain attributes, maybe humor over other attributes. They may value physical appearances over characteristics, and so some people like blonde hair, some people like brown hair, some people like black hair, some people
gray
like
hair.
I like your hair.
It's like I'm looking
See,
at this
I don't like
video and I'm like, man, I'm so
I
similar.
don't like brown hair or blonde hair or that. I like your hair. See, that's how I fix that.
Smooth.
And so
Trying to make up for being sick on Valentine's Day.
I was sick on Valentine's Day. That was terrible. Anyway, but the whole point is because we have these values, we have set these values and everyone values things differently. We have priorities that differ because our values differ, and because our priorities differ, our decision-making processes differ. So when other people make decisions that we don't agree with, we look at them and go, "What is wrong with that person?" We may even go, "Why are they so dumb? Why would someone make a dumb decision like that? It's obviously a bad decision." And
Hmm,
maybe it is or maybe it isn't, okay? I'm
yeah,
not saying it's always a good decision. I'm just
right.
saying we look at it, and the reason we think it's a dumb decision is because it doesn't fit our value priority paradigm. We would not have made that decision. And so with siblings, when you grow up in the same home, you would think then that automatically you would have the same values and you would think automatically you would have the same priorities, but you certainly don't
Mhm.
because your personality and your own decisions concerning sinful, behaviors, iniquity thinking, all of those type of things affect the way that you value, place value and make put priorities and make decisions. And so all of that changes from sibling to sibling.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's difficult to comprehend that though in your siblings because you're only perceiving how you grew up in that home and how you understand everything and the values you have. And it's hard to reconcile that other people in the home would
Mm.
not have the same value priority paradigm and thinking process that you have. But I have 3 siblings, and I would say that I love all my siblings. I appreciate all of them, but I don't think like all of them. And, the reality is that they're all good people. They're all serving the Lord, but we don't agree about everything.
Mm-mm.
Now there's things we do agree about. There's things that maybe we grew up that would be culturally similar for us because we existed in the same home and we picked up some similar cultural things, but there are also things that we did in the home that maybe one or two of us say, well, we did that growing up, but I didn't like that, so I don't do it. And another one goes, what are you talking about? We always did this growing up.
Right.
And so there's this hodgepodge then over time of
The
between siblings.
As the older you get, oh, you develop your own.
Mm.
So then
Well,
you throw that dynamic
correct.
in
Yeah,
there.
because when we got married,
And yeah, because I would say probably I think more like you now than I ever did than I did my family
oh yeah.
for a while. So I mean, I think part of that.
But we've been married twice, almost we're coming up to this will be 33 years in October. And at 36 years, we will have been married twice as long as we were ever in our parents' home.
Yeah, but I'm just
So
saying. So I mean, just even in natural, when you get married, you're going to naturally shift some of those things.
right, because you're infusing another
Hmm.
person's culture and philosophies and life together, right? So
Right.
it's going to impact both of you, at least to a certain degree. That's going to happen. You're melding two people and two homes, two families together. And so that happens, and already there's distinction between each of you. And then you marry someone from this family and they marry someone from that family and another family. And before long, those differences maybe can grow over time. It doesn't mean that you can't choose love and affection toward them. It doesn't mean that you don't still love them as your sibling, but maybe over time your value and priorities change. And then if you complicate that even more, that's just the natural, normal
Life.
transitional things with sibling
Mhm.
relationships. Then throw in this question.
Religion.
They leave the faith.
Yeah.
They
Mm.
depart. And here's the thing, they know a lot about the faith.
Right.
They know your practices, they know your beliefs, they know your, manners and so forth. And so if they leave the faith and they are respectful toward you and the faith they have departed from, that might not be a severely dramatic thing. But if they leave the faith and they're antagonistic toward it, that can be very dramatic. And I think that's true for parents and children. I think that's more true
For
for
siblings.
siblings. And so that complication there of if they leave the faith and they're antagonistic. So I don't think it's as cut and dry as just they left the faith. I think there is that aspect or that element that has to be considered. All right, have they departed from the faith and that breaks my heart, but I still love them. They're my sibling, they're my child. My relationship with them can continue and I can be a witness, or is it that now they have left the faith and they now despise me for not leaving the faith? And I see that happen,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Kids who cancel parents because the parent stays in the faith,
Right.
um, who cancel siblings because the sibling stays in the faith. And they have decided to leave and they have now made their stand synonymous with themselves as far as who they are. They say, if you stay in the faith, you cannot have a relationship with me, as if it were some bargaining chip,
Mm.
right? And so I think it has taken us a long time to get to this point. Okay, so we're trying to explore the concepts here along the way, but I think that is the point at which probably this question came into, like, hey, how do I deal with a sibling or a child who has departed from the faith and is antagonistic toward the faith and refuses to have a relationship if I'm going to continue in the faith? So let's think about that for a few minutes then.
Well, It just because they're antagonistic doesn't justify returning that. Isn't that what it says in
Mm.
First Peter 3?
Don't render evil for evil or railing
Railing
for
for
railing.
railing. So I think, but that also doesn't mean that you have to be subjected to it either. So,
Right. Well, and it might be that you have to say, look, I want to continue a relationship. And if you're willing to talk about things other than this, but if this is only thing you want to talk about, then we have really nothing to talk about unless you're willing to listen.
right,
This is not going to be a you lecture me all the time about why you've
right,
left and why I should leave, because that's not going to happen. But I am willing to have a relationship with you outside of this. You're my sibling, you're my child, either
either
or,
or, yeah,
right? And at some point, maybe that opens that door. But if there is that antagonism, that's where you have to maybe draw that line and say, if
mm,
you're not able to have a relationship without being antagonistic toward my faith, then that's you, not me. I'm not breaking this relationship.
right,
You're breaking the relationship. And I think you have to make that distinction,
yeah,
because that's one of the things you hear from people about leaving their faith is how everyone treated them so badly. But the
mm.
reality is that they
They
often are the
make it.
ones that are creating a scenario where
They have no choice then to cut them
people
off.
people are like, wow, you're so filled with hate and you're so filled
Right,
with anger and rage, and that's obviously going to create a pulling back of other people,
right,
because they don't know how to respond to it, and b, they feel attacked. And so when I feel attacked, I'm going to withdraw.
right.
And so, it's like you create the scenario that then you accuse others of. And that's kind of a typical thing.
It is typical and it's sad. And I think we've counseled people in different situations like this where, if you're not able to talk to them, maybe write them letters, but don't beat the, like, again, don't belliger them with the gospel. Don't,
Belliger them,
the word wasn't,
bludgeon them.
it wasn't coming to my brain. I told you I'm tired.
Belliger, that's a new word.
Belligerent. Don't be belligerent
There
with
it
the
is.
gospel.
All right.
um, or with church or whatever. And
Yeah,
you
but you could
teach
write them a letter and
exactly,
say,
but you
hey,
teach
here's
this
what's
all
going
the
on in my
time.
life.
You teach this that when you do marriage conferences and things, don't let the past be in the past. Don't be bringing it up. Don't be having clamor over the issue all the time. Write them a letter. Tell them how much you love them. Bring up a childhood memory or whatever if it's not, something that's going to trigger them or whatever. But right, let them know. Let them know how much you love them. Then so I've even heard of situations where children have kept their grandkids from the grandparents, and we've counseled grandparents, write the kids a letter,
They
and
may or
if
may
you
not
can't
read
send
it,
it,
and they may,
file it away,
right.
and when they are of age, you can let them make their own choice or whatever, but
Mhm.
you can demonstrate to them that you love them in many different ways. You don't have to It doesn't have to be in person, or it doesn't even have to be a phone call. There's many different things that you can do. I know of a situation where a lady where there's strife within the family, and she just, every once in a while she'll send them a little gift or whatever, and with a little note, just thinking about you, love, and love you, and not anything big, grand, or lengthy, long, but just something to let them know that she loves them, that
Yeah.
they're part of the family. She loves them.
So ultimately, I think that when it comes to what can I do in a positive way if they are belligerent, I might communicate in those fashions and try, and see how that goes. But then also pray, and don't discount that as, well, I can't do anything else. That is the thing we can do.
That's real
And
power.
that's the power of God is in prayer. That's not to say that God's going to intervene and override their free will,
Mm,
but God can create those scenarios in their life that cause them to go, wait a minute, this is, those decision points. Now
mhm,
they have to respond to them, so it's no guarantee that they're going to get right.
right,
But if you're praying for them, don't pray, not praying about them, praying for them, right? And praying for God's direction, God's leadership, God's wisdom to you to
mm,
know how to approach them. Praying for God to remove the blindness from their eyes, pull back the veil and the confusion, and for God maybe to prevent them from those influences that are creating that negative or destructive thinking in their life and praying a hedge around them. And those things, all of that in prayer, I think is a big part of how we should be as Christians responding. And so we've talked primarily about the relationship, trying to continue the relationship, trying to deal with the relationship. But I think from a spiritual standpoint, that s- when all else fails, pray is maybe not the right way to say it, because we ought to be praying prior to all else failing.
Right.
So but maybe we should say it like this, as the Bible does: pray without ceasing, right? Don't stop praying for them because they have left the faith. Don't stop
Right.
praying for them because they're antagonistic toward the faith. Keep praying. And someone has said, I've heard people say this before, well, don't pray for me. I don't want you praying for me. And I told someone that told me, I don't want you praying for me. And I said, well, you can't stop me. I'm going to pray for who I want to pray for. I'm going to pray because I'm commanded to pray. And, you can't stop me from praying for you. And you can be mad about me praying for you, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just that stubborn. I am just not going to let you stop me from praying for you. Right. Paul said, we cease not to pray for you. And so I think that's the thing, you should try as best you can, try and keep the lines of relationship open on a personal level as best you can. When God opens the door, share truth and never stop praying. And those three things, I think, are the way that we deal with that.
Yeah, those are the key.
Okay, so before we go, next year we have the dates for Family Faith Summit.
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, Faith Family Summit. Did I say it wrong?
Family
Faith Summit. Yeah. And the dates are, after all that confusion, January 14th and 15th. We're moving it from Tuesday, Wednesday to Thursday, Friday. And part of the reason is because tickets for the parks are cheaper earlier in the week. And then Thursday, Friday, and then you'd still be able to fly home on Saturday if that's what you chose. And there was a little confusion this year, we found out. I didn't realize there was a little confusion, but there was a little confusion that maybe the Family Faith Summit was only for those in ministry, and that is certainly not the case. We did have a section that was for ministry only at the beginning, and that was kind of the concept. The rest of it was supposed to be for everyone, but I think maybe having that section at the beginning caused people to, maybe they didn't read past that section.
Oh, maybe not.
And they thought, oh, well, it's just, it's just for preachers. But this is for everyone. And this is a couples conference for the whole family. It's a singles conference for the whole family, or a youth conference for the whole family. We had such a great time. We talked about that in a podcast there, but we are super excited. It'll be again at Lock Haven Baptist in Orlando, Florida.
Yes.
And Pastor Stockton and the church, they were so gracious with everything.
Yes.
They're looking forward to next year. And so we're really encouraging everyone to make plans now. And the cost,
start saving now.
Right. So the cost for the conference itself will be $75 a family. And then, but the thing is that for the, your travel or lodging and all that, that's all on you. So the conference cost is just $75 a family. That covers the whole family regardless of size. And then, it'll involve the couples portion for those that are married. There'll be a adult single for those that are college age or older. And then there'll be a teen for the youth, and then there'll be classes for young people for children, and then also a nursery. And so all of that is part of that, and it's in Orlando. It was so nice. Oh, it's so nice this year.
You just cut out 12 coffees between now, February, and next January. You'll have the whole conference paid for.
Well, for the conference fee anyway. Yeah. But that's a great thought, though.
No, just 12 coffees.
Some of them could cut out
12 coffees.
Some of them, if they just did 1 week, they could cut 12 coffees out. That'd be a lot.
If you don't drink 30 sodas, then you would have the whole conference paid for.
Perfect. All right. So anyway, encourage you to put that on your calendar, January 14th and 15th, Orlando, Florida. And we hope that we see you there, and families from the church. Tell your church about it. Tell your friends about it. invite folks to come, and we hope that you do
We'll
come.
be updating the Family Faith Summit website. We'll be sending out information. We'll be putting out stuff on Facebook. So keep an eye out for it. And
Right, and you can follow us on Facebook at Family Faith Summit,
yes,
and also familyfaithsummit.com, I
is
think
the
is the
website.
website. So, looking forward to that. All right, like, subscribe, share,
Leave a
comment,
comment.
and we'll see you next time
Yeah.
on Life and Godliness. Is anything else?
No. Carter's the number 4 hope at gmail.com if you have a topic suggestion.
There you go. God bless.